Greetings, parish orphans and retrogrades. On Friday, Hanoi Jane Fonda made a comment on The View to the effect that pro-lifers should be dealt with by being murdered. I'm going to play you that clip on today's episode of Rules for Retrogrades. Everyone's talking about this, and they're missing, as usual, some of the big angles, at least two of them by my count. So I'm going to be talking about Jane Fonda, her half walk back that was not a walk back from her Friday remarks on The View. Joy Behar nervously laughed and tried to attenuate away the effect of the comment by saying, "You're joking, right?" And Jane Fonda shook her head. No, she's not joking. Pro-lifers, as usual, are obviously right on the life issue, right on the money, but are calling for prayer and conversion, which is good, but we need to know how to respond to this sort of thing before we can even know how to fight it. Hopefully today's show will direct people in a way that's still Christian, but helps you know what we're up against. And I think the pro-life response to this sometimes underdoes the evil. And I don't mean to call out names because, of course, the pro-life people are correct and Jane Fonda's wrong. But for one instance, Lila Rose, great anti-abortion activist, says actress and abortion activist Jane Fonda calls for pro-life politicians to be murdered. Murder to protect the murder of children, which is what it is. So well said. She closes by saying, "Pray and work passionately against this darkness." This is very, very vague, that this last line, and it's an otherwise good tweet, and it's actually her short clip of the Jane Fonda passage that I will be using. So thanks, Lila Rose. But pray and work passionately against this darkness doesn't quite cut the mustard when it comes to what Sun Tzu advised us, the admonition, know your enemy. I don't think just praying and working against such darkness, all of it's accurate, is sufficiently specific. So we're going to be talking about what the pro-life movement tends to miss. And I've done this in other shows, but specific to this remark. And some of them are big milieu type questions. That'll be on today's show. Now, speaking of pro-life, the wife of Catholic podcaster Ryan Grant did pass away yesterday. And Ryan's got a humongous family. He's got 9 kids that survive Sarah, the rest in peace Sarah Grant, as well as her husband, of course, Ryan. 9 children, one of whom is a relative newborn. If you would, please give at least $5 or $10 on their Give, Send, Go. I think I'm not certain. I think there's tremendous expenses from the medical bills. The funerary bills are always expensive. And traditional Catholics are striving toward the kingdom of God. They're not necessarily your money-obsessed go-getters. That means us on the production end and on the consumption end. So a lot of Catholics for whom this is a reality, people like Ryan and the late Sarah Grant, they need your help. No one can be fully prepared for such a tragedy. Please give to their Give, Send, Go. Are we attaching that? Thank you.
Bottom of the screen.
Okay, so please give to the Give, Send, Go. Please send Ryan your prayers, but also your money. If you have even a $5 spare, that's better use than giving to your diocesan parish. In 99.5% of your cases, that's easily more efficacious than giving there. So please see the Give, Send, Go attached to this video, and please give them some money and some prayers. Now, I'm still telling folks, even though it's the 3rd month of 2023, we're nearly a quarter of the way through the new year. Can you believe that? Time just speeds up as I get older and older. I didn't think that it would be as important as it still is to get out of your blue state and get to a red state. Go to realestateforlife.org to do so. We were just surmising again yesterday as we approached the 3-year anniversary of living here in Mississippi, moving from California, going from the bluest of the blue to the reddest of the red, how different our life is, and it's all for the better. Humidity here in Mississippi notwithstanding. Go to realestateforlife.org, and a good, probably Catholic, definitely pro-life person will help you get from your blue state to a red state. I suggest the blood red swath of states from Texas to Florida. realestateforlife.org. If you want to support us, because remember, a little over a month ago, I lost my Patreon account for speaking out on the Skittles issue, the rainbow flag issue. Please do send your support through Locals, attached to this video, or Subscribestar. Also, for one-time donations or even a rolling donation to just me, because I'm a family man, go to timothyjgordon.com and click donate. That's different, though. That's just straight up charity. If you want to support on a site like Patreon but not woke, it's Locals or Subscribestar. Also, like this video, subscribe, click the notification bell, and here we go. So 3.5 weeks ago now, a story broke, and I interviewed FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin to the effect that his former FBI agency had elected an intelligence product to begin infiltrating traditional Catholic circles for the targeting, the specified targeting of traditionalist Catholics like yours truly, because we represented a possible terror threat, possible mitigation opportunities or something like that. Here we go. Do you understand that this Seraphin report was initiated by the prevailing of the pro-life effort in court, the legal way, through the U.S. Litigation system, at its highest level, the Supreme Court? We achieved a victory. We have undersold the victory. And this is what the Hanoi Jane Fonda story is in some sense all about. That I think too many people are missing this. We were the victors. We were the victors. This was the most important victory for conservatives in my lifetime, and we barely paused. It's not even a year ago now, 9 months ago, in June of 2022. We barely paused to celebrate. We neglected to gloat. We neglected to shove this in the faces of our opponents. But more often, we just neglected to take it into our calculations about how viable the United States still is for Christian people. It's quite viable. Now, I know 6 days a week it feels like Baphomet runs our country. I'm not sure Baphomet does not run our country. But on that blessed seventh day of the week, what I'm primarily recalling is the taste of last summer's white pill. The taste of sweet victory. Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health. By the way, it's a double victory for me because I'd, within 2 years of that, chosen to move to the state that basically got Roe versus Wade abolished. Mississippi. It's Jackson, Mississippi versus, Dobbs versus Jackson, Mississippi Women's Health. For all the folks out there that have become so culturally black-pilled, I'm one of them 6 days of the week. I am one of them. I raise my hand. I'm one of them 6 days of the week. Who say that political and cultural efficacy is no longer possible, that it's ultra-virus and it's out of the bounds of our possibilities. I would say, and I do say, many times per week, Dobbs. They were saying throughout my entire life, let's just overturn Roe versus Wade. There have been overturns before. Oh, there have only been like 4 or 5. Even Korematsu, the Supreme Court case, which said that it's legal and constitutional to intern Japanese, Californian Americans, even native-borns. That was never overturned. Legal historians and my law profs, when I talked to them about what are the odds of overturning Roe, I'm very for overturning Roe. They'd say, look, man, even Korematsu was not overturned. The Supreme Court even backed up FDR in interning American citizens. You think they're going to overturn something as comparatively popular as Roe versus Wade? Not that Roe versus Wade was popular, but it's comparatively popular. You think they're going to do that if they haven't even overturned Korematsu? Get real, man. You're dreaming. But here's the thing. They did it. We won. We won. Anything is possible. Moreover, many of you don't know this, but if you read Justice Thomas's concurring opinion, he signed on to the majority opinion, but he wrote his own concurring opinion. It said something incredibly based. I've cited this a few times on the show, and I've never pulled up the actual concurring opinion at some point. Next time I do it, I promise I'll just read it. But what he said is that this near and dear legal issue to my heart, as a legal scholar, remember I'm also a constitutional scholar, in addition to being a Thomist, that the 14th Amendment's creature called substantive due process, which enabled what they did to the red states on contraception, homosexuality, gay marriage, pornography. They used the 14th Amendment through substantive process to make it illegal for red states to make porn, contraception, gay marriage, sodomy illegal. They illegalized the illegalization of it. So they on the court, through the 14th Amendment, forced the nationalization of not just Roe versus Wade abortion rights, but all these other rights connected with the sexual perversion that leads to the need for abortion in the first place. And Justice Thomas boldly, in his concurring opinion to Dobbs, states plainly, we're coming for all the SDP rights as well, substantive due process rights. He's one of the few other people in public I've heard talking about this besides myself on episodes of this program. And it portends great hope for America. When all else seems lost, our president is some, pro-baby murder, pro-psyop, Borg automaton. And everything that's happened since late 2019 with the canting world elites against the rest of us, the sheep and lambs, have happened. Everything seems like a black pill, but Dobbs proves that it's not. Now, we just need to gloat in the face of Jane Fonda, this 85-year-old thrice married slut who is telling folks to murder pro-Dobbs people, anti-abortion people. She's saying murder them. And she shook her head. I'm not joking. I guess this morning or within the last 24 hours, she came out and she said it was a joke, but it took her 3 days. And that's not how stuff works anyway. She just found out. You might be on the hook for incitement. You might literally be triable for incitement. Now, there's the controlling law on incitement, by the way, is called the Brandenburg jurisprudence from a case called Brandenburg. And it specifies that such remarks, hey, we should murder all the anti-abortion politicians, like Hanoi Jane said, they need to be sufficiently specific. So she might not be on the hook, but someone might try that case against her 85-year-old thrice married ass. But what's with that haircut too, baby? Come on, it ain't the 60s.
Not so groovy.
It's not. Nothing's groovy anymore, Jane. Look, the sun has set on the era when young people thought like that. Young people now, when they turn to politics, they're turning increasingly to cultural issues, and they're becoming increasingly conservative. So the idea of, peace and sunshine, hands off our bodies, rosaries off our ovaries, there's no cultural context for such a political dialogue anymore. Folks don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Hanoi Jane and her buddies used to walk around Haight-Ashbury reading poetry, right? Young people don't even know what a poem is. For one thing, they've gotten more conservative. Secondly, they're way less cultured. So they don't even know what you're doing. Like a rhyme? Oh, is this rap? Is this Def Jam poetry? It's a combination of the bad and the good in terms of covering the explanatory gap as to why young people don't know what the hell you're talking about. Not only does your haircut make you look nuts, Jane Fonda.
And the hair color.
And the bright husky silver. But young people don't relate to that, okay? All they've ever known is the Corinthian-styled sexual depravity that was once cutting edge to stand for. Now what's cutting edge is to be like, look, young men just say, look, man, I want a virtuous wife. I want a wife that hasn't done it with a bunch of dudes or any dudes. And young women are like, I don't want a guy that's doing beat poetry in the streets. I want a guy that's prepared to defend me. He's got a few muscles, unlike all the beat poets and the hippies. And I want a guy that's virtuous too. Maybe we make our honeymoon on our wedding night what it's supposed to be. That's what's beautiful. That's what's lasting. So the young people don't take as cutting edge the ideas that were cutting edge for you, Jane Fonda, in the 60s and the 70s. And they certainly are turning against abortion, which is why we just beat you. Which is why you just lost, which is why you're so angry. I haven't even played the clip yet. The point is, people, the first point that gets undersold is Dobbs versus Jackson is a major white pill. And if you don't get this, I don't get why. I don't get why not. It's a major white pill, and it's an obvious one. Huge victory. No one ever talks about it. Also, we're coming to overturn Griswold in the contraception ban. We're coming to overturn Stanley versus Georgia and the no pornography ban. We're coming to overturn Lawrence versus Texas and the no sodomy ban. And we're coming to overturn Obergefell, the no gay marriage ban. When I say no plus ban, it means that they've made it illegal for us to illegalize it. Listen to Hanoi Jane. I haven't even.
Play it on here if you want.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let me just start from the beginning.
Because this is a good length.
We have experienced many decades now of having agency over our body, of being able to determine when and how many children to have. We know what that feels like. We know what that's done for our lives. We're not going back. I don't care what the laws are.
Okay, would you pause there? We'll pause. So the second point that no one's talking about, and again, this is my first point that no one's talking about, major white pill, everyone should feel good. The second point is more like a black pill. For all of the pro-life folk out there, like Lila Rose, who've done really admirable work for many years and are sincere believing Christians, they're always telling you one lie. Everything else they say is true, but they're telling you one lie, and that lie sticks in my craw. You ready for it? Here it goes. You're not going to be shocked to hear me say it. What Jane Fonda just said, that prefatory remark to the money shot that we're going to play in a second, that we're not going back. All the women in the audience clap. She says, we understand what it's like to have sexual agency over our own bodies. We want to have sex, which is funny because the feminists go nuts when you tell them about the conjugal debt. I don't think feminists are out there having great, plentiful sex. That's a lie. I think these are, also you can look at them. If Jane Fonda is like the best looking of all the feminists, then that's a problem.
They should be the biggest advocates for the marital debt.
Right. They should be the biggest, and they're not. So they're not out there having tons of great sex, and there aren't many men that want to have sex with a feminist. Maybe in the 70s, Hanoi Jane, but not anymore. It's very out of fashion. I mean, it's very out of fashion largely because ask your husband in the case for patriarchy. We started a tidal wave, by the way, an absolute avalanche. This has become, and it's becoming more and more, totally mainstream. Whereas 2 years ago, when this book came out, it was not in the mainstream to say, look, patriarchy's good. Don't deny it. Look, wives need to obey their husbands. Don't deny it. This is Christianity. It's central to Christianity. You might not be a Christian. If not, then out of my face, I don't want to talk to you. But if you are a Christian, you're not allowed to be a feminist. See, that's grown, Hanoi Jane Fonda. But the second point that's a black pill is constituted by the fact that folks like Lila Rose, who does otherwise great work, have lied about women not knowing, not understanding what abortion is. That's not what's reflected by that remark. Would you start that remark over? Let's hear the prefatory part again. Yeah, Steffi, please, and then pause there if you can. Thank you. Listen.
We have experienced many decades now of having agency over our body, of being able to determine when and how many children to have. We know what that feels like. We know what that's done for our lives. We're not going back.
Okay, this is advocacy. Oh, and then let's hear the applause if we can, please, too. Thank you.
What the laws are. We're not going back.
So wait, okay, if we pause there, what am I to make of that? Lila Rose, who I like and respect. I've never met her, but I mean, I seriously challenge you. What am I to make of all that applause, of the proposition behind the applause? Look, we're not going back. We don't want to go back. What am I to make of all the numbers? Women have wanted abortion because it enables, legally, the murder of the fetus, which arises as the consequence for sex. The purpose of sex is procreation. And you're saying, look, we're not going back to having to have a baby if we have sex. That contradicts the main narrative that also I've been behind the scenes trying to get rid of. Talking to big name, not Lila, I've never spoken to Lila, but I've spoken to other really big names in the pro-life camp that are like, we need to change the narrative on this. If you want to end with truth, you got to begin with truth. The truth is, abortion is about women as murderers. Okay? This is the whole truth. If you're pro-abortion, you're pro the only legal agent who can make the decision decides to hire a hitman. And this is, I think, the only time we've ever cited Pope Francis favorably. He said 3 different times it's hiring a hitman. The man's not allowed, the husband, father, boyfriend, is not allowed to hire the hitman. Only the girlfriend, mother, wife agent is. So, Lila Rose, you got to start telling the truth about this. Abortion is murder. Remember, I kind of half debated Abby Johnson about this on Taylor Marshall's show. And now she's changed her tune, God bless her. And I invited her on this show once she changed her tune. I was like, oh, did our dialogue have something to do with your about face on this issue? She says, abortion is murder. I can't stand talking to politicians that say it's not murder. I say, yeah, of course, great. Murder is a human crime. It's codified in the Model Penal Code and in all 50 state, whether they have, a more policy-based, encrypted penal code, or whether it's more common law-based, all 50 of the states have murder defined as it must be freely committed. It's a specific intent crime by one person or more. You can't have murder with 0 murderers. The murderer, in the case of all hitmen cases, the primary, is the one conscripting the hitman. The hitman is a co-conspirator, collaborator. We have to stop lying about this. Jane Fonda, as point number 2 in this video that you're not going to hear anyone else, just proved my case. We're not going back, she says, by way of mainstream political advocacy. And by way of mainstream political advocacy, the listening audience showed you that they're not just a captive audience because they clapped like a bunch of seals. Abortion, see, I mainstreamed the patriarchy. Now I'm going to mainstream this other point because we've already won Dobbs, and now we need to win all of the states, state by state. That's going to take a long time in the blue states by showing abortion's murder and aborting mothers are murderers. It is a woman's issue. Women as murderers. Women aren't typically murderers, but they are in this one area. Okay, let's play the rest of that.
And
clip.
I'll just say too, like on your point, like women know it is murder. Like a lot of these pro-life advocates, they try to say, oh, they don't know, they're unaware. Those claps and Jane Fonda's quote right there, women know what they're doing. They're not thinking they're going into these clinics and not committing a murder.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Here's the money shot now.
That's Jane speaking, and she will get
Huh.
a Nobel Prize.
But it's
Yes,
true.
yes.
It is the truth. I'm not going to do it.
Besides
gonna
marching and protesting, what else do you suggest?
Well,
it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a miraculous. What did you say?
Murder.
She's kidding. Wait a second. She's just kidding. Don't say that. That's. Oh, you don't know. They'll pick up on that and
Yeah,
just run
that's
with
the
it.
worst.
She's just kidding. It's.
Well, let me talk to you about.
She shakes her head no. That's why they're laughing there. She goes.
Talk about Jane's activism, which is legendary.
So she shakes her head no. I can't tell whether the audience is seeing this. Certainly you're not if you're on the audio podcast, that's for sure. But even if you're on the video podcast, maybe we just had audio. She goes, I'm not just kidding. Okay, some of you saw. So she clearly said, I advocate the murder of anti-abortion folk. And no, I'm not kidding. Joy Behar says, oh, you're just kidding. No. Now, multiple, 48 hours later or so, give or take 12, she comes out and she says, I was kidding. This is not the way that codified speech works. It's not, legally speaking. If something untoward happens, we certainly hope it doesn't, she's on the hook, potentially. She's on the hook for at least a prosecution. Now, Brandenburg jurisprudence for incitement, because that's what she's trying to do. She's trying, as the left always does, to incite someone to murder a Christian conservative because they really are terrorists. This is point number 3. They're the real terrorists. Without being on the hook for Brandenburg jurisprudence, and I'm not sure she even knows, but Brandenburg seems to insinuate strongly that for someone to be on the hook for incitement, they have to say murder this time in this place. Here's where the Wells Fargo coach is going to be, at high noon on April the 3rd. I'm using a modality that's gone, from the 1800s. So no one takes this the wrong way. Go hold up this stagecoach by Wells Fargo, in 1893 on the 91st day of the year at noon. That would be incitement, even if you don't know the perpetrators who actually commit the crime. Because you gave them information and you riled them up. There's something to animating the blood, animating the spirits. That's a real thing at law that is criminally disincentivized. Okay. What she did was enough to incite some crazies, but she didn't say, here's the time and place to do it. Here's the specifically most anti-abortion 5 Congress people. Here's where they tend to have lunch. Do so around this time, around this place. So I don't know whether or not she would be convicted if something untoward happened. But remember the context here, people, parishovers and retrogrades. Remember it. It wasn't fully a month ago that Kyle Seraphin, FBI whistleblower, came on my show and said that because of Dobbs, this is point number 3, because of our victory in Dobbs, pro-life trad Catholics are being looked at askance by the FBI as terrorists. And of course, that doesn't come anywhere near meeting Brandenburg jurisprudence for incitement. But that's not what they're looking at us for. There's a crime investigation. That would be where Brandenburg analysis is appropriate. On the other hand, there's an intelligence operation where they write memos and intelligence products, and that is like a circle. That can go on forever, according to Kyle Seraphin. They don't need some discrete beginning or end for that, whereas a crime requires a discrete beginning or end. So what he's really telling me that is, I'm sorry to say it, another black pill, is that for the first time in U.S. history, the new abiding present regime that was just recognized by Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health is being illegalized. The outlaws, in other words, are the ones who follow the law. This has never happened in U.S. history. Never. Typically, this has happened many times where the U.S. Guard, Army, Marines have been mobilized. Those three have been mobilized to defend a new standing regime against its sore losers. That's very typical. Think of all the stuff we were beaten over the head with, integration in the South, right? There's famous footage of that. There are plethora examples of the U.S. Marshal state, let's call it that, because now it's more the intel agencies together with presumably the Marshal state, that are weaponized against the sore losers on this or that particular SCOTUS issue. SCOTUS comes down with a new handing. These people aren't going to like it. Mobilize the Marines. Mobilize the State Guard. Mobilize the Army. Get ready. Tap these phones. Do this, do that. Whatever the hell the intel agencies do. Get ready for the sore losers. With Dobbs versus Jackson, you've heard it basically at all three branches of the government, which intel agencies aren't any of the three branches of the government. They're not legitimate government, if you ask me. You've heard it with Biden. The outlaws are actually the in-laws. An outlaw is someone that can lose their property, even, and their ability to inherit property to their next of kin for being murderers and being outside of the law, outside the protections of the law. An outlaw in the Old West was someone that I think could be freely killed in the Old West. So usually you say, look, here are the possible outlaws, the losers of case thus and such. In this hypothetical Supreme Court case in 2030, case A prevails, B loses. B looks like they're going to get violent and terroristic. Keep your eye on B, the sore losers. Here, we're not sore winners. We didn't even gloat much, which I said in my first point. We barely even gloated. And Biden has said it a few times. I've heard Congress people say it a few times. I haven't heard it much through, the judiciary, which is the branch that gave it to us. But instead of the judiciary, we saw it in plain ink a month ago when Kyle Seraphin was blowing the whistle. We saw the intelligence memo. We got to read it. The terrorists are the victors. What? That makes no sense. Why would we be looking to do any violence? We just won. We just kicked Hanoi Jane's old ass, right? She just lost the ability, if she's in one of the red states, to murder her baby without consequences. Mother murder her child without facing the legal consequences.
And I'll just say this. I'm glad that she has lived to see this.
Me too. She hasn't. She's lived to see the death of Roe. She's lived, though she doesn't seem to acknowledge it yet. She survived the death of that haircut's fashionability that you just saw her with. She seems to acknowledge the former, but not the latter. And here's the thing. So what she just said will be a kind of test case for whether or not the FBI, and this is very relevant to yours truly for reasons you can probably guess at, because I'm going to be one of the prime suspects here. This is very relevant to the question in the week or 2 weeks following Kyle Serafin's media blast. It's oh so relevant to whether or not the FBI has actually dropped this. You know? It was even condemned by Biden's top cop, right? Said, oh, we condemn this. The Biden administration doesn't go for this. It was condemned roundly. And the FBI took 48 to 60 hours to get it off their server. But the reports are, according to Serafin, whom I believe, who's a cool dude, in addition to being a truthful dude who helped us out a great deal. He also seems to be a generally cool dude. Seems good at the podcast, good at the talking. A lot of those FBI guys, that might not be the case. I think he's got a future in this. He says they're probably not going to let this go. They're going to let it fall out of the news for a couple months. Then they're going to pursue this kind of intelligence product. And subsequent investigation. So here we have a clear binary set of options for anyone not suffering from insanity. This is my big point 3, most expressly stated. If the FBI has really left this behind, then the ones who ought to be getting investigated for domestic terrorism are those, including and like Jane Fonda, who just gave them a really good launch-off point for an investigation. She just said, in so many words, I recommend the murder of the folks who now enjoy the legal favor of the new regime under Dobbs. She said it really clearly, and she also said it about the lawmakers too, which makes it expressly terroristic because she's trying to obtain legal advantage through the threat of violence to legislators, pro-life legislators. Or the other binary is, do they continue pursuing the somewhat mollified, somewhat satisfied, pacified political victors that are not by any stretch of the term outlaws because we just won? And we're not threatening anyone. We just want to keep going through the legal process. If the FBI is listening or watching this, you have your clear terrorist. It might be hard to believe in the shining Siberian Husky silver haircut of an 85-year-old whore named Jane Fonda. But that's your terrorist. They talk like her. They might not all look like her, but they talk like her. Right? It's a clear binary. You have a terrorist. You have someone talking like a terrorist, and then you have the pro-lifers. We're like, we're happy. Thank you. Thank you, Justice Thomas. Thank you, Justice Alito. The 3 or 4 others who went along with them, I guess thank you. But it's Thomas and Alito are the ballers on the court, which we've talked about. Anyway, that's point 3. That's point 3. Now, point 4 is, and again, the nice, polite, PG and sometimes PG-13 heroes of pro-life like Lila Rose are not going to like this. The point is strongly insinuated in this book, The Case for Patriarchy. Abortion is feminism. Feminism is abortion. Okay? Feminism is abortion. Feminism is at its core the turning of a mother against her place as per her children. Turn the mother against the children. It's generally speaking, turn the mother against the father or the wife against the husband or the girlfriend against the boyfriend. You've heard that story though, right? It's not as true as feminism turns a mother against her kids. Simone de Beauvoir And Michael Knowles has been talking about this a lot, and this actually comes from his book. I think we've each read each other's books on this. His most recent book was amazing. But Simone de Beauvoir told Betty Friedan this. You Americans are obsessed with your freedoms, and feminism's never going to thrive the American way, where you try to convince American women to leave the comfort and the safety and the joy of their homes and leave their children there and leave them to the care of communist Skittles people at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old when they're still babies. You do it the French way. If you're serious about your feminism, you make it illegal for mothers to stay home with their kids. That's what's up. Mothers' freedoms, as conceived by the feminists, are threatened directly, most directly, by children, their blood. They're the enemies, the babies. Yeah, it's the men who inseminated you and want you to cook and clean because you're a woman. They want you to submit because you're a wife. Christianity requires it. Wives submit to husbands. Husbands don't submit to wives. It's very, very, very clear in dozens of passages of scripture. Dozens of popes have said it. Lots of them come from the 20th century. There's no real debate. There's lying on the other side by so-called Christian feminists. But that's falling out of fashion now because the truth always outs. And this book was the truth. But the point is, so Knowles has even been talking about this a lot lately. Good on him. And that quote I got from his most recent book. I think he's read The Case for Patriarchy. And he's out there making its case. He's not saying feminism is abortion, abortion is feminism. But he is saying everything else about it. He's saying the genetic argument. Look, if you don't like LGB or T, well, LG and B is the proto T before T. And before LG and B, the proto was feminism. And that's the direct argument from this 2-year-old book. In other words, gender dysphoria. That means, if I'm putting it into everyday terms, hating your own sex, hating the lifestyle accoutrements associated with your own sex. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, I know there's L, G, B, and T. With T, you actually think you can ontologically become the opposite sex. With L, G, or B, you want to act like the opposite sex in the bedroom. But with the feminists, and I'm talking the first wave feminists, the worst of them all. I say the first wave feminists are the worst of them all, not the best. They were the original gender dysphorics. They were weaponized gender dysphorics insofar as they said, I don't want to be what the Bible says a woman says we are and what nature clearly says a woman is. I don't like that. I want to serve the functions ergonomically of a man. That is the OG gender dysphoria. And I show how it goes back to Eve and even apocryphal Lilith. Okay? That is why abortion is feminism. Feminism is abortion. You thought feminism, Pair Shortens and Retrogrades, was about women versus men. It's not. It is, but only secondarily. Primarily, it's women versus children, which quote unquote hold them back. That's why the babies for them must be killed. The babies must be killed. And Hanoi Jane Fonda says it there. We're not going back. We must continue murdering our babies, and we will murder anyone that makes it illegal for us to murder our babies. Show me the error. I defy you. We must murder our babies for our political advocacy group to continue to thrive. They haven't thrived. They've been clinically more depressed each decade since Roe. But they think they're thriving. And if you get in the way of our new thriving, we will murder you. Murder begets more murder, just like lies beget more lies. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. I'm not trying to sound cocky. I'm just saying you heard it here first. You know you heard it here first. Shortly after this book came out, this book sold well. It didn't sell as well as Catholic Republic or Rules for Retrogrades, but that was because it's so cutting edge. Another book came out from this household less than a year after The Case for Patriarchy, and it was called Ask Your Husband, and you can buy that book today. Now it's self-published. It wasn't before. But that book created the splash that I thought this book would. Together, Ask Your Husband and The Case for Patriarchy started this snow rolling down the mountain, and now it's avalanching. You go listen to the excellent commentaries of Michael Knowles on Daily Wire. He's probably talking about it today. I've heard no less than 3 talks he's given on it in the last week and a half alone. 3 talks or appearances, TikTok, they're all different. He did an appearance on Matt Fradd's show. I think Matt Fradd was probably very, I'll be frank, uncomfortable. Knowles says unabashedly, I have a laundry machine in my house. I don't even know how to work it. It's not, there's no such thing as gender. I think he disagrees on that. There's gender expression, he'll say. But gender expressions should be governed by sex. Yeah, it's not in my sexual nature to do laundry. It's not, I don't know how. I don't know how to use my laundry. I can honestly say, Michael Knowles, I don't know how to either. In that Matt Fradd episode where he had George Farmer, who cites Catholic Republic, and then Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh, I don't know if they actually use the name of the book, but they're citing from The Case for Patriarchy argument as it was first laid down. And Fradd looks, poor guy. I love Matt Fradd. He looks very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable with the mainstreaming of the barrage of attacks on the so-called Christian feminists. I've told you for a while now. This book's been out almost 2 years, and I told you for 2 years before that 2 years when I appeared on Fradd's show. What's coming up to 4 summers ago? There is no Christian feminism. This is a lie. The people that pitch Christian feminism are liars. The people that pitch abortion is murder, but there's no murderer, they're lying. They're Christian feminists, generally speaking. The Hanoi Jane Fonda remarks and commentary on The View on Friday just proved that much. But of these 4 big points you're not going to hear anywhere else, I'm looking with a hungry eye most for, I think it was point number 3. I'm looking most at federal agents. You've got your abortion terrorists. They're not the antis. They're the pros. Literally saying we need to kill pro-abortion, anti-abortion legislators. Have at them. Let's see the intelligence product directing federal agents to investigate and arrest these scumbags. Even though they're 85. She's had a lot of work. She looks so much younger. She looks all of 83. Right? She's still young enough to go to federal prison. Look into it. Parish orphans and retrogrades, I salute you. Go get Case for Patriarchy and Ask Your Husband today. God wills it. Deus Vult.